Well, good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Domonique Clemons, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as your county clerk and register of deeds, a position that I was appointed to, elected to, and affirmed by our state appeals court that I have the privilege to serve as the county clerk. And in doing that, we as a community have made history. As your Genesee County Clerk and Register of Deeds, I am the first African American to hold the position in the history of our county. I am the youngest county clerk in the state of Michigan. And I am also the first openly LGBTQ clerk in the history of the state of Michigan. And I say all of that because representation matters. It matters who we have in office, and it matters that our elected officials show up every day genuinely, authentically, and living in their full intersectional identities of who they are. That is what we need to be doing when we're elected to the office. Representation matters because it's not only who's serving in the office and making decisions, but who's setting the example that other individuals can see themselves in places of office, that we can see in Genesee County that a person of color can win a countywide seat, that a member of the LGBTQ community's role is not only as a part of our community, but is in our government, and that young people can indeed win elections. That is representation. As you all know, since the Voting Rights Act has passed, we have not seen ever until now more attacks on the very basic fundamental rights of voting. Across the country, we've seen time and time again efforts to strip away people's rights to vote. And why is that? Because when people turn out to vote, when we vote, we win. When we turn out, we make progress happen. We make sure that people are representing us are held accountable, right? In Michigan, we're lucky. We have bucked that trend. We have consistently expanded our rights to vote over the last 10 years alone, from the introduction and the passage of no reason absentee voting, that you can vote by mail for whatever reason you want to. In Michigan, we've recently just passed, and we just had our first election with early voting. Because we recognize that everyone's not always available on the first Tuesday in November, that sometimes we need a little bit more time to get that thing done. But in doing that, we've also made it easier for folks to register to vote with automatic registration anytime you interact with the Michigan Secretary of State's office. Pre-registration of 16-year-olds that when they get their first driver's license, there's not much else they have to do besides on election day when they turn 18 to show up to the polls or get their ballot mailed to them, or show up for early voting and cast their vote. And now in Michigan, we also have the permanent absentee ballot list, where individuals can not only vote no reason absentee, but can sign up and automatically have a ballot sent to them every election. And all of those things that I just talked about weren't things that were decided and came up with from politicians. It was things that we all, as voters, decided through ballot initiatives and referendums. Some of them passing very closely, some of them by a wide margin. When it comes to voting in Michigan, we usually overwhelmingly say that we want to expand, not limit, our rights to vote. And we're seeing more than ever, as I've already mentioned, the attacks on that, which means the fight to protect that vote has to be even stronger now than ever before. There are so many times throughout history that a single vote changed the course of history. In 1800, one of the closest presidential elections in U.S. history, that went to the Electoral College, the House of Representatives had to vote. One vote determined that Thomas Jefferson was going to be the president. We see that same thing has happened time and time again locally, in big races and small races. Not many years ago, a woman named Barb Byron Her mother, Diane Byron, was running for Congress and lost that race to Mike Rogers. Some of you might remember that name, by less than 50 votes for a congressional seat. Looking in the history here in our community, Flint was the first city in the country to pass a fair housing ordinance that initially failed to go to the city commission. And by a razor-thin margin, the voters in Flint made Flint the first city in the country to say that we're not going to let people be discriminated on when it comes to housing. This last year, 2024, we saw our U.S. Senator, Alyssa Slotkin, win a statewide U.S. Senate race by less than a half percentage point. Every vote matters, and who we elect matters. Because on the flip side of that, the legislation that we're seeing going on at the federal level, what some might refer to as a beautiful bill, what I see more as a big ugly bill, passed by one vote, the tie-breaking vote of our Vice President of the United States. Every vote matters. Our vote is our power, and is such a powerful thing. And we can't just vote on those big presidential elections. We're really good at that. Genesee County, we had 64% voter turnout in the presidential election. On the west side of the county, Gaines and Argentine saw over 80% voter turnout. In the city of Flint, they didn't break 50%. We've got some work to do in Flint. If I have any Flint folks in the room, you all in Benton did phenomenal in getting voter turnout. But when we look at non-presidential years, our midterm cycles, those odd year elections, the turnout is abysmal. I'm going to reference the city of Flint again. They have a city council race coming up this August. The primary that was narrowing 4 candidates down to 2. Less than 400 people turned out to vote. And with that, the top 2 vote getters were tied, and the third place person was 3 votes behind that. Last year in August, the Argentine Township Supervisor's race was decided by less than 3 votes. Right here locally. Those local elections, those off-year elections matter. How many of you know what is on the ballot this year, or if you do or don't have an election this year? All right, we've got some hands. This year, 2025, in just a couple of weeks, there is an election in a couple of our communities. The city of Burton has their primary election for their city council. We have the general election for the Flint 3rd Ward City Council seat. Grambling Township has a ballot proposal on their ballots. And some voters in Argentine Township and Byron School will be voting on a school millage. This November, city council races in Clio, Grambling, Burton, and Benton will all be decided. The rubber meets the road at the local level, not just the presidential level. So make sure we're staying engaged every year and throughout the year. We know what's coming up in 2028, but before that, we know there's a really big election happening in 2026. We've got some work to do there. So I want everyone to take a second and think about their vote and that power. If you had something so powerful that could change the entire course of history, why would you not use it? But that's what's happening every single day. Because we get busy, because we think, oh, my vote's not going to make that big of a difference. It does. And you all know that. When we get into this next year, and as we lead up to that, there's going to be a lot of folks vying for your vote, but also asking you for your signature. A lot of the candidates need to collect signatures to get on the ballot, but also there are a lot of ballot proposals. There are several, some good, some bad, that are currently in the process to circulate signatures to get on the ballot for next year. That includes an initiative to try to limit our voting rights, to go against the very thing we're here about, the very legacy of John Lewis, that you would have to not only provide an ID to vote, but you would need to prove your citizenship, that you would need a birth certificate to vote. If you're married and your name's changed, you would need your birth certificate and a marriage license to vote. And that proposal also includes, if you do a mail-in vote, you got to mail all that in with it. So That's what we're up against. On the flip side, there are also ballot proposals that are collecting signatures to expand protections for voters, making it easier for folks to vote, and also giving new options on the way to vote, such as ranked choice voting. There are ballot proposals that want to get rid of property taxes in Michigan. Some folks might think that's good, some folks might think that's bad. As a lot of you probably know, your schools in your county is primarily funded by property taxes. There are signatures being gathered to add a ballot proposal for marriage equality. While it is national law because of the US Supreme Court case, we know that those can very easily be overturned and be left to the states. And Michigan still has a ban on same-sex marriage if the Supreme Court was to overturn that ruling. That could be on the ballot if the signatures get collected. There's a ballot proposal that's currently being debated, not quite collecting signatures, around changing some tax structures on raising taxes for some to pay for education. And we could see several more things come to the ballot between now and next year's election if they collect that almost 400,000 signatures that are needed. So we need to all not only be voters, but we all need to do our due diligence and be well-researched voters. And being a well-researched voter also means considering those ballot proposals, and if you want to sign or if you want to decline to sign to get things on the ballot. But in any case, at any rate, we've got our work cut out for us. I want everyone to take a second to look at the person next to them and say, we've got our work cut out for us. Yeah. Well, what I know about our county is we have never shied away from the hard work. So together, let's do the hard work to fight to preserve the legacy of John Lewis, to fight to preserve the legacy of Michigan's expanded voting rights, and to make sure that we are protecting each other in these challenging times. Thank you.